A lot of us tend to overthink these things. We list all the, I'm sure all of you have like had a giant decision and you list the pros and cons and you make a like spreadsheet of like what's good and what's bad, and then you kind of calculate all the odds of what's the best decision that you can make. And I kind of think of it as the choose your own adventure book, you know, when you were a kid and you like stick your fingers between every single storyline that's possible, and then you find the one that you've already read that wasn't good and then you pick the best one. I was an optimizer, and as a kid, like that was what I wanted to do. And so that kind of person generally tends not to trust their gut because there's no data in gut. It's kind of a raw feeling. And so I decided to shut all that out, right, and trust the gut, and then really prove to myself that I could be an entrepreneur and I could be a really good entrepreneur. And so through, you know, getting to know my co-founders, it wasn't like we formed a team, like the idea just like shot into our brains, and then we got funding and boom, we're a startup. Like, no, nothing works like that. It took 2 years of sort of failing and, you know, exploring ideas and coding up prototypes and then getting disillusioned and then, you know, almost quitting and then succeeding a little bit, killing ideas. And then a lot of learning to sort of get things up and running. And all the while, I was still really uncomfortable and I was really scared because, you know, you're still, just because you say I'm going to be an entrepreneur, it doesn't mean all those insecurities go away. And so even after I quit my job and I was like, I'm committed to this, and I, you know, was like, okay, I'm going to use my savings and eat junk food for the next 2 years, it was still really terrifying. Like, I kept thinking, okay, what if someone asked me a question I don't know the answer to? Or, you know, what if I'm not smart enough to do this? What if I'm not good enough? Like, what if this? What if that? And that sometimes that chatter just got really loud. And so one interesting story I want to tell is it got really, really loud when we finally got lined up to pitch to Sequoia Capital. I'm sure a lot of you have heard Sequoia. It's a pretty good VC, I suppose. They, you know, funded Google and Yahoo and all those folks. And so we each had our part in the presentation, and my part was to explain the technology. So I'm like, all right, I got this. So I like studied for hours like it was an exam. I was like, okay, what are the coding decisions that we made? What are the bugs that we fixed? Like, what are the design decisions I made? Why did I architect this way? You know, what are the like giant, you know, coding obstacles that we had to overcome? And I was like, all right, I got this. And I was really, really nervous. We practiced because you're basically in a room full of billionaires, like generally older white men. And I'm like 5'2", like I said. I look like I'm 18 because I'm really young at the time. I have one good outfit, which I've recycled for all of my pitches. And you're sitting there thinking, okay, I'm going to ask these people for a lot of money. And then I was like, there's no way they're going to ask me a question about memory management. Why am I stressing about memory management? And that moment of sort of realization was sort of amazing to me because I kept thinking, I'm a fake, I'm an imposter, I'm not good enough, but I built the product. Like, I did the work. So no one knew that product better than I did. So I wasn't an imposter. I couldn't be standing here if I was an imposter. And so that sort of quieted the chatter a lot. And there are those sort of key times in my career, and I think will happen to you guys, where you have all this self-doubt and you have all this hesitation, and then something crystallizes where you're like, why am I thinking that way? And those moments are extremely powerful. And so I tend to sort of stock those up. So when I do feel insecure or I do feel doubtful, I can kind of remember back to when I was able to overcome that.